I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining me here tonight. I stand here before you to speak to you about cultural diversities. First, I would like to instill a thought in your mind. If you had the choice between being physically deformed but be guaranteed to get married into wealth, or being physically fit but guaranteed not to get married, which one would you choose? I would like you to think about that throughout the presentation. The many separate societies that emerge around the globe are remarkably different from each other. The more obvious cultural differences are the languages that they speak, the way that they dress, and of course the tradition that they take in or that they carry on. There are also variables that societies have in order to keep themselves organized. Now, the specific tradition that I wish to speak to you about is an ancient Chinese tradition called foot binding. Now, you may be wondering, what is foot binding? Allow me to explain. Foot binding is the custom of where they bind the foot of young girls painfully tight in order to prevent them from further growing. It is said in history that foot binding was first practiced among the elites and only in the wealthiest part of China. It was a mark of beauty that later on became a prerequisite among women to find their husbands. It was also an avenue for poorer women to marry into wealth. This became very popular due to the fact that men found this to be highly attractive. Women, their families, and their husbands took great pride in tiny feet, which, by the way, it measured 3 inches. We can compare that to a box of cigarettes. If you have a hard time, seeing what 3 inches is. They were so proud of it that they represented their pride with these silver slippers. They were embroidered and they were very highly classy. They were highly classy. Obviously, these young women, they were not born with bound feet. They actually had to experience a process to actually get them this way. They began the process at a really young age, between the ages of 2 and 5-year-old. Now, why at this time frame? This time frame, their feet has not fully developed its arch, so it was easier for them to break. The process begins by taking a mixture of herbs and animal blood, dipping the foot in there, dipping the foot in the mixture, and this would allow the foot to actually soften up, and of course it would allow also for binding later on. Now, once they immerse their foot in this particular mixture, and it takes a few days to do that, what they'll do is that they'll take the toes and curl it up right under the sole of the feet, and with great pressure push it downwards and break the toes. Once the toes were broken, what they'll also do is that they'll tuck it in a little bit more and then push it again until the arch of the foot was broken. Once the arch of the foot was broken, they will bind it up with these special bandages, very tight to each other. Once or twice a week, they'll remove them just for hygiene purposes and put them back again, but tighter than it was before, so like that it won't continue to grow. This is the outcome of how it looked right there. That looks very, very, very painful. We could see the differences here between a regular foot and a bound foot. As you could see, the arch is really high and broken down. At some point, some of the girls, they included glass right before they bind it, or they bind their foot with the glass in there. Now, the purpose for all this is so that the foot can get an infection, and eventually the toes will fall off, therefore leaving it even smaller than expected. Here we have an ancient Chinese woman here with their foot bind, and that's how it actually looks. What do you guys think about that?
Disgusting.
Yes, it is. It's very, very disgusting. In conclusion, bound feet were once considered intensely erotic in China. Of course, at the expense of these girls being tortured while they were young. All this to get married. They were tortured, but also they lived a life of agony and pain. Why? Because their bones were not perfectly healed. And if they were healed, they would continue to break because they were very, very weak. Okay? All this to get married, which leads me again into the question that I asked you earlier. If you had the choice to be physically deformed, but be guaranteed to marry into wealth, or the choice of be physically fit and perfect, but not marry at all, which one would you choose? Is it worth it?
No way.
Single. Be single. Be single, right?
Let's be single.
Thank you all for joining me here tonight.